everyone! Welcome to story time with Nanay Jill and
Hanan. I'm reading a kitty cat book.
A kitty cat book. She's reading a kitty cat book. Today we're going to be reading together a book called Filipino Children's Favorite Stories. And this is a book of different stories. The story that I'm going to read to you today is called Why Mosquitoes Buzz Around Our Ears. And this story is this book is from Liana Romulo. A long time ago, in a fish pond not far from the rice fields, there lived a giant crab named Maga. Maga was no ordinary crab. He was the king of crabs, and everyone was afraid of him. Not only was he always in a crabby mood, he was almost twice as big as his cousins. His crab cousins. When Maga was mad, his big claws would go snap, snap. And everyone, the fish, the fireflies, worms, frogs, mosquitoes, snails, birds, would run away. One night, Maga couldn't fall asleep, which wasn't at all unusual. Everybody in the Pond Kingdom knew, Maga always had trouble sleeping. They also knew that if anyone dared wake him from his sleep, Maga would get very angry. That night, he crept in and out of his house restlessly, trying to make himself tired enough to sleep. His house was a hole in the mud that led into a deep, dark tunnel underground. Finally, he gave up and decided to call for his old sheriff, who lived in a crab hole nearby. "Gagang!" he yelled into the quiet darkness. "Gagang!"
You see?
Here. Who are those? What are those?
Doggo.
Those are mga palaka. They are frogs.
They're singing.
Yes, they're singing. So,
What are they singing?
let's see.
What
A
are they
little while later, Gagang arrived at Maga's side. Though Gagang was the sheriff, he was an old and brittle crab,
Nanay.
and he could barely outrun a worm. "Yes, sir," he said, his gray feelers twitching. "What can I do for you, sir?" "Gather up all you can find, all the frogs you can find, and bring them here," Maga said crankily. "I can't sleep and I want them to sing to me." Several minutes later, Maga was back in his house, listening to the frog song. They were singing, "Kokak, kokak, sit back, bleed it, now go to sleep." The frogs chorused. Maga soon fell into a deep, deep sleep. He snored loudly. Gagang began to feel a bit sleepy himself, so he too crawled into his own hole to go to sleep for the night. "Kokak, kokak, sit back, bleed it, now go to sleep," the frogs went on singing. Then suddenly, what happened? Fat raindrops began to fall from the sky. "Wah! Ha! Ha!" one of the frogs said, laughing. "The king's snoring is so loud, it's beginning to rain." Oh. Then all the other frogs began to laugh too. They said, holding their bellies. Can you hold your belly and laugh? The frogs were having so much fun They didn't even notice Maga come out of his hole. He was wide awake and mad. Oh no, let's go, said the terrified frogs. In a panic, the frogs began hopping in all directions, trying to find places to hide. They leaped behind slippery rocks, into tall grass, and underwater lilies in the murky pond. Early the next morning, when the sun was just beginning to shine, Maga ordered Gagang to rally all the frogs for a special meeting. "Why were you making so much noise last night?" he demanded, inching closer to the frogs and snapping his claws loudly. The frogs clung together, shakily. They knew very well that Maga was strong enough to slice any one of them in half with a single stroke of his powerful pincers. "I am the king," he boomed, raising his claws above his head. "You must never, never disturb me while I'm sleeping." The frogs looked at each other. They were worried. Then finally the bravest frog stepped forward. "Sir," he said, as politely as he could, "we saw our friend the snail carrying his house on his shoulder. And so we started to laugh." Maga looked at him sharply, and the frog lowered his gaze ever so slightly. Even the bravest frog knew better than to challenge Maga. Maga nodded thoughtfully. "I see," he said. "The snail made you all laugh." "Yes, sir," said the frog. "Well then," Maga said, his tone softening a bit, "I will pardon you this time, but the next time, snap, snap! You're all going to get it." And with that, Maga dismissed the frogs and turned to the old sheriff. "I want you to find that snail and arrest him." A couple of hours later, the old sheriff returned with a snail who started shaking when he saw Maga's great giant pincers. "Snap, snap!" Maga's claws went. "You," he said, pointing a claw in the snail's direction. "Why were you wandering around last night with your house on your back?" "Sir," stammered the snail, "sir, the firefly was playing too close to my house, and I was afraid it would catch fire." Maga remained silent for a moment. "I see," he said. "It was the firefly that made you wander on my property with your house on your back." He looked at Gagang, who was standing guard next to the snail. "Do you believe his story?" he asked. The old sheriff nodded. "I think he's telling the truth, sir." "Then let this snail go and arrest that firefly," Maga ordered, his claws twitching with anger. "Find that firefly now!" Oh my goodness. They found the snail, and now they're gonna go find the firefly. What's next? Oh, look, this is Maga and Gagang. Maga is wearing a bahag, and Gagang, the old sheriff.
We see?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. Gagang returned at noon, the firefly nervously fluttering beside him. "Whatever it is," she said tremulously, "I swear I didn't do it." "Be quiet," Maga said, fuming. The heat from the sun was now beating down on his back, and he was growing madder and madder by the minute. "Firefly, explain why." Snap, snap, snap! "You were carrying fire near the snail's house last night."
Yeah?
Yeah, this is him and his big claws. Look how big those claws are. Whoa, he has huge claws.
Maybe.
She began. "Well, speak, Firefly," Maga said impatiently. "I haven't got all day." The firefly tried again. I had to turn on my fire to keep the mosquito away, she explained. He was trying to bite me. Oh. The firefly's story seemed perfectly believable to Maga. But before he could give Kagang the order to arrest the mosquito, the old sheriff spoke up. You want me to find the mosquito and arrest him, sir? He said, sounding tired. Bring him to me now, he raged, rapidly snapping his pincers. Snap, 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 snap. Kagang dutifully took off in search of the mosquito as the firefly fluttered away. Late in the afternoon, he returned with a humming mosquito. Can you buzz like a mosquito? Humming, buzzing all around. Well, hello, King, the mosquito said. Why have you invited me here? Then he casually buzzed over to where Maga was sitting. Maga didn't like the mosquito's tone one bit. He'd even seem afraid. Snap, snap, snap! Went his claws threateningly. Snap, snap! Why were you trying to bite the firefly? The mosquito laughed, buzzing even closer to Maga. I'm a mosquito, aren't I? He said cockily. It's what I do. You'll be punished, Maga roared, his eyes bulging. Then the mosquito flew swiftly up into the air and poked Maga right in the eye. He knew that the eyes were the only soft parts of the crab. Ah! Cried Maga, turning bright red. Kagang, he cried. Kill that little bug! By this time, Kagang was truly exhausted, but he mustered up all his strength and raised his pincers. Snip! Went one of his claws weakly. Snip, snip! The mosquito laughed and laughed, even daring to fly in between Kagang's claws just for the fun of it. In and out he recklessly flew until suddenly Kagang caught him with one deadly snip. Snip! The mosquito stopped laughing and fell to the ground, lifeless. Then out of nowhere came a battalion of mosquitoes with a humming roar. Do you know what a battalion of mosquitoes would be? Yeah? They are a lot of mosquitoes. They're swarming all around. Oh my goodness. They're going to be very hungry and they were very mad. Bzz, bzz, bzz. Hundreds of the dead mosquitoes' friends surrounded Maga and the poor old sheriff, poking them in the eyes with their sharp stingers. Snip, snap, snap! The crabs fought back. But Maga's powerful claws were useless to him. The mosquitoes were just too fast and too small. Finally, Maga and Kagang gave up and scampered into their holes with the mosquito battalion trailing close behind. Oh no! The mosquitoes could no longer get to Maga and Kagang, who were safely burrowed in their houses deep underground. But today, 1,000 years later, the mosquitoes are still waiting for them to come out. So whenever they see the holes of our ears, because our ears, they look like holes, they have little holes in there so we can hear, they're reminded of Maga's and Kagang's crab holes. So whenever they see the holes of our ears, they're reminded of Maga and Kagang's crab holes. And that's why mosquitoes buzz around our ears. Thank you for joining me for story time reading Filipino children's favorite stories, Why the Mosquito Buzzes Around Our Ears. I hope you liked the story. Did you like the story, Hanan? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're going to say bye and thank you so much for joining us. We'll say bye. Bye. Thank you for joining us.